was 22, I got a job in New York City, living in Jersey. However, there was no way I'd be able to do that commute daily, so moving was a necessity. I searched for an apartment on Craigslist. So when I saw an ad on Craigslist for an available bedroom in an apartment in that specific area for a really low price, I jumped on it. I took a ride to the city the next day to see the apartment, and the landlord gave me a quick tour of the place. The landlord himself seemed a bit socially awkward, but that didn't really matter. The place did come with a catch. I'd have a roommate. The landlord said he's a very quiet to himself kind of person, which he said was good. My roommate's name was Bren. The landlord knocked on Bren's door, asking if he'd like to come out and say hello. Bren didn't even answer. The landlord suggested he might be taking a nap, so we moved on to talking in the living room, where I expressed interest in renting. I signed an application, and the next day the landlord called and offered me the room. So I moved in the next week. My dad helped me unload all my furniture into my little room. Something odd to note was that never once did this Bren character come out during all this commotion to at least say hi. He was definitely home. We heard him moving around in his room. I came to the early realization that he probably wasn't going to be friendly at all. When we finished unloading the van, my dad left, and I was alone, officially moved out. I sat on my bed and started watching Netflix on my laptop. Then, I heard the door to Bren's room open and close. This seemed like my chance to go out and say hi. It was his first time leaving his room. I got out of my bed, but before I could even get to my bedroom door, the front door to the apartment slammed shut. I stepped outside to the living room, and no one was there. I didn't know what the deal with this Bren guy was, but surely he had to know we'd have to meet eventually. I went back to my room, ate a bowl of ramen, and went to sleep. I woke up when I heard the front door to the apartment close again, then footsteps. The footsteps on the creaky wood floor made their way to the outside of my door, then stopped. I sat up and looked at the crack below the door. The outlines of feet could be seen through the light creeping in under the door. Why was he just standing out there like a creep? Of course, I didn't say anything. I just waited for him to walk away. I didn't have my door locked. I was low-key terrified of him entering my room. Thankfully, he walked away from my door and back to his room, and I heard him shut his door. I tried to go to sleep, but all night, all I heard were thumps coming from his room. I had no idea what he could possibly be doing. I was tempted to go knock on his door and tell him to keep it down, but I hadn't even met the guy yet, so I had to deal with it. Eventually, I fell asleep, and when I woke up in the morning, it seemed Bren was out already, maybe at work. I didn't know at the time. I spent most of that day shopping for groceries and basic apartment necessities. When I got back, I dropped all the bags on the couch in the living room to give myself a rest. I cooked dinner and watched some Netflix on the couch, all the while Bren never came home. I did a quick run to the nearby 7-Eleven to get toothpaste, and when I got back, I noticed Bren's door was cracked open, and the light was on. So I figured this was it, the moment for me to say hello. I went to his door, knocked slightly twice, and pushed the door open. What I found in there was shocking, or maybe I should say what I didn't find. Him there. The room was completely empty, not a single piece of furniture except for a single chair sitting in the corner of the room, the kind of chair you'd find in a high school classroom. My heart suddenly started racing, and I started to shake. I turned off the light in that room and shut the door. I went to my room, locked the door, and sat on my bed, suddenly getting a really bad headache. I took out my phone and thought of scrolling through the phone to pass the time. As I was sitting there, I heard someone moving inside my closet. I freaked out and didn't know what to do. I ran to the bathroom, locked myself in, and called the cops. I could hear someone moving outside in my room and someone whispering in a hushed tone. The police got to the apartment shortly and searched the whole apartment with me, but no one was found. They tried calling the landlord, but he didn't pick up the call as well, and the mystery of Bren remained a mystery. I had my dad come the next day to help me move all my stuff back home. I found another apartment the next week. It was a huge hassle going through the whole moving process again. I knew from the start the so-called landlord gave off bad vibes, but who would have ever imagined the events that took place? It was a new chapter of my life as I got admitted to college. I moved into a new house, but it wasn't that pleasant, and I got out of budget. The rent was eating me, and I didn't earn that much to cover it up, so I thought that I might need a roommate to share my rent. I asked some of my friends, but they already had a place to stay. So I went to Craigslist and posted an ad on it, looking for a roommate. I had never used Craigslist before, so I was kind of hesitant, but the need was real, so I thought of giving it a shot. For the first few days, I didn't get any reply on my ad, but as the days passed by, I got an email from an anonymous account that some lady was interested in being a roommate. I got curious and replied to her mail, and within moments, my phone rang at an eerie hour of 11 p.m. I thought of not picking up the call as it was late at night, but I ignored my intuitions and picked it up anyway. The girl introduced herself as Ellen with no last name. She sounded creepy and her voice was echoing in my phone, making it even scarier. The call had a lot of static disturbance. Despite all these red flags, I agreed to share the rent with her and told her all the details. I thought sharing the space with a girl might be a better option. She ended the call by saying, "Ok, I am on the way." That was strange, as I was expecting her arrival tomorrow. Suddenly, 5 minutes later, the bell rang. I thought it might be someone else, but as I went towards the door and saw through the peephole, I saw that a girl with a bag of clothes in her hand was standing at my door. She wasn't moving and just looking at the door, as if she knew I was looking at her through the peephole. I opened the door hesitantly and said hello. She said expressionlessly, "Hey, I am Ellen," and gave me the rent in advance. Right away, I didn't know how to respond. She didn't have any furniture with her and insisted that she would adjust. Still, I furnished a spare single bed in her room, and she was very easy to live with. No shouting, no rush, and no worries. She woke up, we had a chat. She was shy and quiet. There was something about her that was disturbing me right from the beginning, but I ignored it. But then her behavior took a strange turn. She ate messily with her hands, her mouth used to get drenched with the food and dirt often. I started feeling uneasy around her, as if her presence gave an eerie energy. Time passed, and my discomfort grew to a level that couldn't be tolerated anymore. And one night, I woke up to loud thuds and strange noises coming from Ellen's room. I rushed to her door and knocked. The knock was responded to with screams of more than one person. I kicked the door open, and suddenly everything got quiet. There was no one in the room, but everything was messed up. Walls were covered with deep scratches and dried blood. Ellen was nowhere in the room, yet I heard screams coming from the room just moments ago. Confused and terrified, I searched the room thoroughly, but I had no explanation for what just happened. I called the police and told them everything that happened right from the start. They asked for Ellen's picture. I had only one random picture of her passing behind me while I was taking a selfie. They took it and started investigating. After a week of sleepless nights and troubled days, police responded with a call. They summoned me to the police station and revealed the shocking truth in front of me. The policeman told me Ellen, the girl in the picture, was not Ellen. She was Grace, a girl who lived in Connecticut. She went missing mysteriously about 3 years ago from her place. Her family said that her behavior had grown increasingly bizarre before her disappearance. She was reported by me after 3 years of her disappearance, and again there is no trace of her anywhere in the Long Island. I was living in chaos and couldn't digest all that in one sitting. I was about to faint when an officer gave me water and dropped me home. I left the house to erase this traumatic memory and decided to live in a hostel for some time. In 2011, I had to sell my old bike since I had recently gotten a new one. It wasn't a piece of junk, so I figured I could get a couple of $100 for it. I posted an ad for it and listed my phone number so that anyone interested could text or call me. The ad was up for a few days with no bites, and I was becoming impatient. Finally, after 3 days, I received a text from someone late in the day showing interest in buying the bike. He got right down to it, stating he wanted to come get the bike as soon as possible. I told him he could come right now and included my address. He said that he would be there within an hour. I was home alone at the time. I was sitting in my living room watching TV, and it was dark outside when I heard a car pull up in front of the house. I got near the window and peeked out to see who it was, and I saw 3 grown men getting out of the car. I didn't get the purpose of 3 men coming over to get a bike. One of them rang the bell. They had to have seen me standing by the window, so they knew I was there. I opened the door, and the man standing in front of the other 2 reached out and shook my hand. He told me that his name was Chris. He was a big dude. He also had a really thick beard and a deep voice. However, he didn't introduce his 2 friends, who were just standing behind him, looking at me with blank expressions. They weren't exactly tiny men either. As I was telling them about the bike, Chris cut me off and passed by me into the house, asking which way to the bike. His 2 friends followed him. The idea of making sure they didn't enter my house was clearly out the window. I didn't know what to do, so I rushed in front of Chris to stop him going further into the house and led him towards the stairs to the back door. Chris, along with his 1 friend, followed me to the backyard, where one of them told me that he needed to use the restroom and asked me where it was. I paused for the longest time. I was thinking, should I let this random dude use the restroom of the house or not? I looked at their faces, and they all were staring at me with angry and creepy expressions on their faces. So I submissively told him where the restroom was. That man disappeared into my house. I went to the shed to grab the bicycle. While going to fetch the bike from the shed, all I was thinking was, what the hell did I just get myself into? Somehow, I showed them the bike, which I don't think they were interested in. He started analyzing every little detail of the bike, like things no one should ever even think to analyze on a bike. For example, some of the spokes may have been slightly bent, or the reflector had scuff marks on it. They were just keeping me busy. I was so busy answering his questions and trying to defend the condition of the bike from his remarks that I didn't even think of the man who had supposedly been in my bathroom for almost 10 minutes. I told the 2 of them to keep checking out the bike, and I'd be right back to fetch something. I went inside to see that person and checked both bathrooms, the one on the first floor and the one upstairs. Both of them were empty. Though just then, I heard people walking around and talking in my living room downstairs. Then what sounded like Chris calling my name. I heard them coming up the stairs. Chris said while ambling slowly in the hallway that they just wanted to talk. My heart was racing. I actually thought that night was going to be the night of my death. I quietly shut the bathroom door and locked it, keeping the lights off. I dialed 911 on my phone and whispered as quietly as I could to the operator to send police right away, or I could be dead within 10 minutes. She wanted me to remain calm and to try my best to explain the situation quietly. After explaining, she told me it was good that I was in a locked room and to wait there until the cops showed up. Footsteps came up to the bathroom door and stopped. Then someone tried the door handle. When they realized it was locked, one of them said in a low voice, "He is in there." Now they knew my position. I told the operator they found me. She said to stay where I was. After a few seconds of silence on the other end, there was a frighteningly loud bang on the door, and then another and another. They were trying to kick the door down. I screamed at them that the cops were almost here, and then the kicking stopped. I heard them whispering outside the door, and then I heard them going down the stairs after a moment. I didn't leave the bathroom until the cops showed up. As I went out to see the house, I noticed that I was missing a lot of things, including my wallet, which was on the kitchen counter, a couple of watches, my iPad, and of course, the bike that was in the backyard. The cops told me to just be grateful that I wasn't killed, which I was. But how could I be happy really after this? The cop said, given that they were trying to break into the bathroom, they were most likely going to kill me, which scares the hell out of me to think about. That was the one and only time I ever used Craigslist.